So the Ravens are getting ready to travel down to Jacksonville, Florida to meet up with the 3-7 Jacksonville Jaguars. Their team is reeling. They have lost 6 of the last 7, but they're coming off a bye, feeling refreshed and wanting to turn things around. They will try to get that done against the Ravens. I'm Sarah Ellison alongside my partner, Bobby Trossett, and we're going to break all things down, matchups to watch. If the Ravens winning ugly can maybe have some positives in it, score predictions. We've got an interview with one of the Jacksonville beat writers down there, so we'll bring it all in right now. Bobby, this is another game where the Ravens, on paper, should absolutely win it, but should they feel comfortable going in and taking these guys lightly? Absolutely not.
No. And first of all of a sudden we blinked, right? And it's week 12 of this NFL season, and this is the last slate of games in the month of November. So crunch time is right around the corner. The Ravens are in good position, obviously, 7-3, winners of 4 straight. We know how soft, at least on paper, which I never buy into this, but from a win-loss record standpoint, the schedule is soft from here on out. But that really means jack. We both know that. Just look what happened in Carolina, against Carolina at home. So nonetheless, this is going to be an opportunity for them to continue their streak, continue to try and keep pace with some of the AFC elites, because, Sarah, the bottom line is that top seed, while it will be challenging because we know how dominant Kansas City and Buffalo really are in this conference, it's not out of reach. So another opportunity here, a little post-Thanksgiving. Hopefully Lamar and company don't eat too much on Thursday. Based on his tweet, I don't think he's going to eat at all, which is kind of concerning, but that's what's going on.
For those that don't know, Bobby's referring to a tweet from Lamar Jackson, which I didn't quite follow. He just said that it looks like he's going to be starving on Thanksgiving, which had thousands of people, as you can imagine, inviting him over to their Thanksgiving table. So we'll see what goes on there. So, Bobby, later on, we're going to bring on
Sarah,
JP. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what, Sarah? Like, can we just envision this for a second? Like, let's put ourselves in Lamar's shoes. The fact that, how about the feeling of truly like being able to knock on anyone's door in all of Maryland, in all of Kentucky, in all of Florida, and let's be honest, probably like most football towns in America and throughout the world, and be able to sit down and have a plate.
Yeah, he for sure could. And if there's not enough food, it's like, whoop, Grandma, you don't get to eat today. This is going to Lamar. Right. There would be people out there ready to do that for him. All right, so Bobby, later on, we're going to bring on a Jaguars from the actual team writer, JP Shadrick, and we're going to kind of break things down with him from the Jaguars side. But let's you and I first talk about kind of where the Ravens are at, coming off that 13-3 win last week against Carolina. Many people, including myself, expected the Ravens to dominate. And to be honest, Carolina never really had a chance. There was never a time that I really felt threatened, and it was mostly because of the defense. Offense was struggling to get things going. So it was definitely one of those situations where it's better to lose ugly than win pretty. And now that you kind of have a couple of days to take a step back, like, what are the benefits? We remember in 2019, the Ravens rolled. They had a couple losses early, and then they rolled to finish 14-2. And it felt like once playoff time came around, they got punched in the mouth and didn't quite know what to do, because it just felt like they hadn't quite had those big challenges during the second half of their season. So what do you feel like are some of the benefits of winning ugly right now?
Yeah, and what's fresh on my mind too, for whatever reason, is not only did they have the week off because of the bye in 2019, but they chose to essentially rest the majority of their starters, including Lamar, for that regular season finale against Pittsburgh. I believe RG3 was under center. So
and Harbaugh said, looking back, that Harbaugh said after that, he was like, maybe I should rethink that if I ever find myself in that situation again. But then again, he may rethink himself again after all the injuries that the team has sustained. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation there.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I'm sure that's still at the top of his mind. But yeah, I mean, all that combined for just a disastrous day against Tennessee, and we all know what followed. But yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about this, and we were talking about this in our pre-show meeting. I think there's a lot of benefits that can come from winning ugly, so long as it doesn't become like a nasty trend that's happening more often than not. And what I mean by that is like winning ugly meant on Sunday that an offensive unit that's expected to put up, we've all grown accustomed to, 30 plus. Now, that's not been the case this year for a number of different reasons. But I think the DNA of championship winning teams means that there has to be a balance sometimes. And sometimes you need to lean on another phase more so than the other. And recently, for now, a stretch of games, it's been the offense leaning on the defense. And so while that's weird and unfamiliar, at least in the Lamar Jackson era, there was a time, Sarah, as you know better than most, that was the case. That was normal times here in Baltimore. Those days have passed. The Lamar Jackson era is different. But I still think that when you talk about, the grueling nature of a 17 game, 18-week season, and knowing some of the struggles that they've had in postseason play, I do think that there's some good that can come from winning ugly. What do you think?
It's kind of the old idea that, diamonds are created from pressure, or iron sharpens iron. Like, I am a big believer in that, in life in general, and it certainly applies to football. Like, there's just you have a lot to learn about yourself in these down moments, and it's even better if you can live those down moments while winning. So, just like little things when you keep seeing how in the fourth quarter you're getting in the ball a little too late, which leads to a delay of call, or a delay of game. So it's like it forces you now to focus on that and fix it. And then on top of it, not to lose your cool. And so it's like, all right, Lamar and Ronnie Stanley, would they handle any situation different if it's in the playoffs? Or did they like the way that they were, yelling at each other and bringing each other up? Did they think that worked for them, or do they think that it set them back? They can figure that out. Lamar punting the ball right the other day, and luckily,
Yeah.
I think the Ravens already were called for a delay of game, so it didn't get called again. But that's something that Harbaugh can say, okay, I've been pretty chill with that in practice, but we can't do that because we're going to get a flag. Or Patrick Queen going through things before Roquan gets here, and now he's better for it because he's been through all that. Or the blown fourth quarter leads on defense, where they've been absolutely humiliated by that, and they know it. And so now it's like Marlon says, last week after the game, we want to put up a goose egg, and they're getting there with the 3 points. And it's through these down moments and through some of that, just like it's like kind of like the question where people ask, do you like winning better or do you hate losing more? When you've been through those ugly moments, you do not ever want to go back there again. There is no way. And so that just puts the pressure on for you to polish and make things better. So 100% there's positives in winning ugly, as long as you're learning lessons, which you alluded to, right? That you don't just keep making the same mistakes and being ugly. So yeah, there's truth in that for sure. It's just not fun to watch while you're going through it. That was not a fun game to watch last week.
No, it wasn't. And the penalty category headlined that fact too on both sides for both teams. But listeners may have caught some of Wednesday morning's vault this week, specifically topic 2, when we talked and shared some stuff about the debate that Stephen A. Smith and Keyshawn Johnson had on ESPN this week as it relates to the Ravens offense and whether or not they're concerned based on their output or lack thereof in recent weeks. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, so I think at one point Keyshawn Johnson said we've been having this discussion for 5 years. And
Yes.
I think that's true, and my feelings are no different today than they were before the Carolina game. At the end of the day, it's an ongoing debate that the Ravens have taken a stand on, and that's can you win in today's NFL with where you de-emphasize the wide receiver position and you play up defense, the run game, and a tight end centric, hopefully efficient pass game. That's the formula. And that's essentially what they were debating again. So am I concerned more today than I was before the Carolina game? No. I have the same stance. This is it. If the Ravens can play their A game in the playoffs with this offense, I think it can win a championship. But it has to play its A game. So that means, the defense plays like they did, It's the run game has to get back on track. There was practically no run game. Am I concerned about that? No, I think Gus and JK are still going to be coming back. And that's a game changer. Am I concerned that Lamar didn't spread the ball around enough? A little bit, but I know he can because I've seen it before. Now he just has to do it. We've seen that Devin Duvernay can step up. We can see that Demarcus Robinson can step up. So it's no more of a concern than it was before. Would it be better if they added, an OBJ or something like that? Of course. The more weapons, the better. So no, it's not that the Carolina game made me nervous. To me, this offense has had very little consistency in personnel outside of Lamar Jackson. It's, JK's in, then JK's out. Gus is in, then Gus is out. Ronnie Stanley's in. Ronnie Stanley's out, then he comes in and he's in a rotation. He's finally at Pro Bowl form, and then he hurts his ankle. And, we're going to have to keep following up on that. And so it's like, it's hard to build a consistency. This offense has shown at times that it can be super hot, and then times it's super cold. And my hope, I don't know if this is true, my hope is that once they start to get their consistent playmakers in there, then they can be more consistent on the field. But yeah, my feeling about the offense in general is the same. Bring me an A game, and I know you can do it, but I haven't seen this offense play their A game in the playoffs at all in the Lamar Jackson era. Where are you at with it?
Right. Well, what I'm thinking about right now is, and you just led me down this path, is let's say at the start of the year, as the calendar flips from 2022 to 2023, and each team or the majority of teams have two regular season games left at that point in the month of January before postseason begins. Let's say that Dobbins and Edwards are back in Lamar's backfield. God willing, Ronnie Stanley is good to go, and he's there, and he's playing left tackle at his all-pro level, or at least his Pro Bowl caliber level that we've seen since he came back into the lineup a few weeks back. And they're at least for Raven standards at this point in what's been obviously a tumultuous couple of years, they are healthy entering the postseason. The one thing that I just thought about that I'm a little concerned about is, from a personnel standpoint, the lack of reps that they've all had together at that point. Yeah, right. Sure. Have they all played together in the past? Absolutely. But will there be rust? Will there be, a flow from an offensive standpoint? And I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know if I should have as much of a concern as maybe that just popped up in my mind, but I hadn't thought about it until, it's just got me thinking curious, because think about all these other AFC elites that they're going to have to go through in order to come out of the conference, right? Like, gosh, Kansas City, Buffalo, Tennessee, Cincinnati, you name it. And the majority of those teams, specifically at the top, like Kansas City and Buffalo, they've maintained like decent health on the offensive side of the ball, and flow and rhythm are not issues for them whatsoever. And so I don't know. Do you think that has any merit?
I do. What would be ideal? Okay. And I don't know if this is going to happen because you can't control the injuries. It's not like it's computer software and you input it and say, okay, you'll be healthy by this time if you do this. Like, everybody's bodies responds differently. So this goes back to like this idea of winning ugly, like, or not having all your players. Like, if the Ravens are able to get those guys back, which is currently the plan, that JK will be back, Gus will be back. Hopefully, if nobody else goes down, Ronnie there, then it's like, if you can have 3 or 4 games in December together, then you can start building that chemistry. And by the way, you haven't given away your entire playbook because they haven't been together. You know what I mean? And so if it all comes together at the right time, then that I think they could get on the same page pretty quickly. I like 2 or 3 games. But if it's just like they suddenly come together in, the first week of the playoffs, I mean, you're right. It still may take a minute. But, when people talk about putting the Ravens up against the AFC elites, the Ravens have played the Dolphins. The Ravens have played the Bills. And yeah, they lost to both, but do you think this new defense is giving up fourth quarter leads like that again? I don't.
Oh, man.
Not, you know what I mean? Not with Roquan on the field, not with Tyus Bowser on the field, not with all these guys there. If Hamilton finding his way, Hamilton and these young rookies were a big part of that. John Harbaugh actually talked about it on Monday. They were like, "What's changed?" And he's like, "Honestly, it's rookies learning their roles, And yeah, so give the Ravens another chance against Miami with this defense. Give this Ravens another chance with the defense looking like it is. I like the Ravens' chances. Now the Chiefs, that's another level. But man, yeah, if Hamilton's healthy and they're playing like they've been playing, I like those rematches, Bobby.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we're going to get to the middle part of the Ravens defense in a second here because there has been a perfect marriage formed in recent weeks. So we'll discuss that in a minute. But you just made me think of something, and that's kind of the experimental phase that they were in back earlier on in this season during the Miami game, specifically with some of their rookies. And one that comes to mind who's just been a healthy scratch for I don't even know how long at this point, but that's Jalen Armour-Davis. And you can remember he was a part he was being targeted in that Miami game, and he was a part of some of those busted coverages. So, I think sort of phasing him out and bringing in maybe.
Here's one of the big changes. It has been phasing Jalen Armour-Davis out because he was, but Hamilton did have some screw ups there too. But he found a spot in that nickel package. And so he was playing on the inside, which allowed Humphrey and Marcus Peters to play on the outside. And he was just blowing everything up in there. When you have a 6'4" DB there and you're trying to play him, if he's playing press coverage, good luck. Or before he got hurt in Carolina when they try to block him, the slot receiver tried to block him on a screen and he just pushed him out of the way and blew up the screen. That's been the magic formula. Once he went down, they actually put Brandon Stevens on the outside and put Humphrey back on the inside. And so, this is going to be, sorry, but Brandon Stevens versus Humphrey on the outside. I know who I'm taking out there. That's one of the ways that they've found their way. They were able to phase. They even put Pepe in for CB3 a couple times, but it's Ben Hamilton that really worked there. And so they were able to use their safety depth. And we haven't even talked about Marcus Williams should be coming back in December too. So the defense is only going to get stronger.
Yeah, that dislocated wrist a few weeks back certainly hurt the momentum that he was on. He was just a turnover machine. And the Ravens defense has picked up where he left off though since then and really become the takeaway kind of unit that we expected this group to be before the season began. Some numbers through 10 games, by the way, for Kyle Hamilton. 209 coverage snaps he's logged, just 177 yards allowed. And for that and much more, he is PFF's highest graded rookie defender for whatever it's worth entering week 12. So you hope that he's okay with that knee. We heard from Harbs earlier this week that the knee is stabilized. Hopefully they're going to be careful with him because after some initial bumps and bruises that we're kind of alluding to here in that Miami game and earlier parts of the season, he's settled in and that role is expanding like we talked about on the vault, within that within the nickel and dime packages that Mike McDonald has him working with. So it's been great to see because initially, remember, he kind of had to face the music a little bit, Sarah. I remember talking about this on the vault one morning. I think it might have been after that Miami game where he was approached by the media scrum and he essentially stood by his dignity there and said, I got to get better. That was unacceptable. And he certainly has since then.
Hey, speaking of first round draft picks getting better. How about
Yeah.
Patrick Queen? How about Patrick
Yeah.
Queen, especially, since that addition of Roquan Smith?
Yeah. For real. He deserves to be talked about because, Sarah, he's been talked about a lot over the last few years, for
Yeah.
good and for bad. A lot of it's been bad. A lot of it's been him trying too hard in a way. And I think Harbs actually sort of alluded to that during a recent press conference. Sometimes he wants to be such a playmaker and live up to the linebacker role that is expected in Baltimore, that sometimes he just whiffs, or sometimes he just gets ahead of himself or hits the deck because he's flying around so much. Even before Roquan arrived a couple weeks ago, Patrick was playing just stout football, playmaker type of football, great vision. And it's been a testament to, I think, what he's done in the film room too. And I think, I haven't read much up on it at this point. I'm going to later this week. But, Jonas Schaefer from the Baltimore Sun did a great one-on-one with him recently. Definitely worth a read
Mhm.
and a look over at the Thanksgiving holiday for those of you who maybe haven't seen it yet. But he just seems like he's a lot more comfortable, obviously, now that he's got an all-pro that he's lining up alongside. But like we said, we made that pretty clear during this one of the vaults this week. This wasn't just because of Roquan. That's put him over the edge, no question. But he was playing at a Pro Bowl caliber level, you could argue, prior to his arrival.
Yeah, I agree with that. You definitely need to give him his due and his flowers on that. And at the same time, Roquan has even allowed it to go to another level. Even another level. Like, I was watching Brian Baldinger's film study of these two linebackers, and it just gets you fired up because you watch the way these two play off of each other. They're both fast, so fast the way they just cut through. And as long as the defensive line, which by the way is also playing, really well, continues to do well despite losing Michael Pierce. I Calais Campbell and Broderick Washington, who had that tip pass that
Yeah.
ended up for an interception. But these guys are eating blocks, which is allowing Roquan and Patrick to just knife through and get running backs in the backfield. They're able to put pressure on these quarterbacks. There was one play though that Baldy highlighted. I don't know if you saw it. Unreal.
Yeah.
Patrick Queen comes through the line, has like this kind of chop move, but it looks like a slap right to his former teammate Bradley Bozeman, just knocks him in his helmet, and his face and helmet kind of like twist one way, and all of a sudden his whole body has to go with it, and it's like he's in a blender. He does a 360, is completely lost, and then Roquan comes in from behind and gets the running back, and then Patrick Queen is able, and then even when Baker Mayfield was able to escape, he's got a lead on Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen is so fast, he's like, you're not going anywhere, and tackles him, as they're going out of bounds. And it's just like, they both are playing so fast and they're both playing physical, like they just throw their bodies in there. And so, man, it's made you just like, you forgot for a while what outstanding inside linebacker play is. And it's just so good to see it back.
Yeah. And Baldy referred to them, the duo, as the fastest duo
Yeah.
of inside linebackers in the entire league, which is pretty, that's just so promising. I think another thing that I was thinking about too was part of the deficiencies over the years when it comes to PQ has been the angles that he takes in space.
Right.
And I think we've really seen an improvement on that this year. And I don't know what that has to do with. Maybe it's just discipline. Maybe it's just better vision, or maybe it's just playing. Yes, he's playing fast, like Harb said, but he's playing freely. And so rather than maybe just almost like it's chaotic. Somebody said this to me recently. It was my sister's roommate's sister, Haley's sister. You were on the call with me yesterday during my trip home from Baltimore to spend some time in upstate New York for the holidays. And she said, Man, somebody at work told me that I have chaotic energy. How do I take that? Should I be upset about that?
Interesting.
I was like, I don't really know, but I love your energy. Anyway, a small little tangent to say that maybe Patrick, instead of having chaotic energy as he once did, because he just felt like he needed to do so much all the time,
Yeah.
now he has just confident energy and he's
Yeah.
playing like it. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch. I hope it's a sign of things to come. And it seems like
Yeah.
whoever gets there first, right? Whoever gets to the playmaker first between the two of them, the other one's like right behind them, just in
Yep.
case. So
Yep.
it's been fun. It's been a perfect marriage. Love at first sight, as Harb said earlier this week, and hopefully, again, a sign of things to come.
Well, and you know what? I think that's actually a really good word for the way he was playing. Chaotic energy. I've said this before. I coach, 3 basketball teams, all with my kids. And you can see kids who have so much energy and they're in a hurry to go who knows where. Like listen, I like the aggressiveness, I like the attack, but where are you going? Kind of a thing. Let's let's harness all this energy and all this talent and all this athleticism, but harness it and focus it to different places. And that's exactly what I feel like Queen has been doing. Again, even before Roquan got here, where it was like, focus that energy, focus that athleticism. I actually think that's a really, really good. Now he's more of a controlled chaos. Yeah, bring that chaotic feeling so that offenses don't know where you're coming from. But let's make sure it's controlled on the defensive side. And we're doing this right, Bobby. We're going with PQRS. This is a given, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm
oh
like,
my gosh.
anytime one of them makes a play together, I'm tweeting PQRS, and like that's it.
Yeah,
So,
it's only right. You gotta respect the alphabet. All right, we're honoring the alphabet here
yes.
on the vault.
Yes, it's meant to be. We have to do it. So, the other day, Bobby, just to highlight one other defender, there's a meme going around that has an image of kind of a bar chart, right? And the bar chart has 3 different categories. One's production, and the bar is like off the chart. The next one is, I can't remember what the next one is, but it's like off the chart. Or it's talent, I think, that's off the chart. And then it's recognition, which is like not even coming up off of the 0 tick mark. And it basically said, which player is this? Saw lots of different people tweeting which player that is. For me, it's Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah.
Marlon Humphrey this year, his production is off the chart in terms of like, people don't even want to target him anymore. You know what I mean? And when he does, like, he only had 2 targets in 31 coverage snaps against the Carolina Panthers, 2 targets, and one of them he gets a nasty interception for. It's like, yeah, that's pretty good at 50%. Like, it's obviously a small sample size of only 2, but of the 2, you intercept one and you did it just by like purely like blowing up the receiver and taking the ball, jumping the route, went right. Yes. I mean, it was so good. And he's like screaming, he's off the chart. And so it's just like, he's all pro Marlo. But when you look at people talking about top 10, top 5, top 3 cornerbacks, he doesn't get the recognition for it, which is fine. That's how we like it in Baltimore. It's fine. But man, he was the perfect guy for that meme for me. And the way he shut down along with the rest of the DBs, DJ Moore, it was a thing of beauty. He deserves so much more recognition for what he's doing this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up, because if PQ has a confident energy, then Marlon has a infectious, contagious energy. The defense just feeds off this guy. I love when he makes a play and he quite literally starts wailing on his helmet, like with both hands, just smacking himself in the face, and everybody just gets up for this guy. You talk about some statistics that come to mind that show just how back to his all-pro level he is. How about this from PFF? Most covered snaps without allowing a touchdown among CBs this season. He sits second behind DJ Reed up there in New York with the Jets with 387. The third player on this list, it's just Stephon Gilmore. So he's
There
back
you
to
go.
playing, what he was about in 2020. That doesn't mean that his 2021 season was, something to kind of scoff at. It was a part of probably how much was on his plate last year with such a decimated defense. We also forget, too, that he tore his pectoral muscle down the stretch last year.
Yeah.
There's absolutely
Yeah.
zero signs of him slowing down at all due to whatever rehab that took this offseason. And by the way, he lives in Harbor East. I live in Fells Point, downtown Baltimore. We're not neighbors, okay? But we do live about a couple blocks away. We live in very different places, Sarah. But what I see on his social media is he has this hot tub that overlooks all of Baltimore. And I won't say what building he's in, just in case we got a couple creepers. But
Okay.
Marlon has this hot tub that's in this suite-like apartment overlooking Baltimore. And he's constantly in that thing, according to his Instagram stories. So he's taking care of his body. He's playing great football. And it's been a joy to watch. It's been great to hear and see all the buzz about he and Marcus, he and Juice Man being back in that conversation for most lethal corner duo league-wide because they're playing like it.
I thought you were going somewhere with that hot tub story. That abruptly ended. I was like, oh,
Still
he's
waiting for my invite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually, should we get into it now or after? Maybe we can do matchups to watch now. Then we'll get into our conversation with JP. And then on the other side, we'll give our predictions. Does that work?
Sure.
All right. So that would be my matchup to watch while we're talking about him is on the offensive side for the Jaguars in their passing game. And you're going to hear this from JP is, they can move the ball. And wide receiver Christian Kirk has been a big part of that. The Jags spent some money on Kirk this offseason to bring him in. And he's having himself a good little season just against Kansas City before their last game. He put up 105 yards, 9 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. So that to me is somebody that Marlon and Peters and the rest of the defensive back room needs to watch. I mean, I think that the Jags running game is really what kind of sets the tone for them. But similarly to what they did to DJ Moore, they're going to want to repeat with Kirk.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one to watch. One that we're definitely going to ask JP about as well. And I think what I also want to ask him about and what my matchup to watch is the fact that Jacksonville's linebacker play has been a little bit suspect so far. So much so that I was listening to Doug Peterson's press conference earlier this week, and they're going with a rotation now between Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma. Now, both of these guys are rookies. You might recall if those of you out there like to follow, the scouting process coming out of college and whatever. Devin Lloyd was somebody who was all in terms of like draft buzz, which is never saying much because there's buzz about every team and every player. But Devin Lloyd seemed to be mocked to the Ravens a little bit. Well, he went in the mid to late 20s. He went to Jacksonville, and he was one of their 2 first-round picks in the draft back in April. And I guess he's playing a little bit frantically. Is some of the talk that's coming out of Jacksonville, and so it just made me think that there's a real advantage potentially in play here for Mark Andrews coming across the middle. And also just for the Ravens rushing attack, which we know can come in a variety of different ways in their RPO game and in Lamar's zone read game. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. And I think there's an opportunity to gash Jacksonville early. They have been a very tough first quarter team. Now we are coming off a week where the Ravens looked real tough in the first quarter and didn't even score a touchdown till really like when they absolutely needed it in the fourth quarter. But I think there could be an opportunity there.
All right. So those are our matchups to watch. We'll go ahead and get into our interview with JP Shadrick. He covers the Jaguars for the team down there in Jacksonville. So let's jump into that.
All right, JP. So we always obviously start with this off the top because there's 32 teams. There's only so many that you can cover thoroughly. So for those who have not been following Jacksonville's season to date, What is the state of the Jaguars coming out of their bye?
Well, the state of the Jaguars is 3-7, and well, first off, thanks for having me on. And 3-7, it is what it is. They've had a lot of close losses. The last game in Kansas City was the first one that was a 2-score loss. Everything else had been within 1 score, and they had lost some fourth quarter leads. The defense has some issues, in a number of different ways we can get into later. The offense is moving the ball pretty well between the 20s, but they struggle situationally in the red zone and in goal-to-go situations. They've been inconsistent. The quarterback's getting better, it feels like. So that's kind of where they are. They're just a tick off, it feels like, from being close to 500, somewhere in that ballpark, but they aren't. And they're in third place in the division, and they're 4 games back of the Titans. They do play the Titans twice, but they're pretty much going to have to run the table if they're going to have anything miraculous happen here.
Yeah, JP, that's what I was going to say. From the outside looking in, the Jags, to me, appear more dangerous than their record shows because, like you said, they're able to move the ball. Their turnover ratio isn't bad. It's 8th in the league, so you got to be careful about turning the ball over. It seems like it's just missed opportunities and self-inflicted wounds. Would you say that's accurate? Is it because they're a young team?
I'd say that's pretty accurate, Sarah. Yeah, it's a lot of it's Trevor Lawrence. There was a game in Philadelphia earlier in the season. It was wet. It was nasty conditions, but it doesn't matter. The other team held on to the ball, and he didn't. He fumbled it 4 times and then threw an interception against the Texans, which is the only game the Texans have won this year, by the way, was against the Jags. He threw a goal-to-go interception on 2nd down and goal from like the 4, and he threw it into triple coverage for no reason. Just throw it away, live another down, and he didn't do that. And then 2 weeks later in London, he did the same thing again, except it was 1st and goal at the 1. The play was designed to be a sprint right, throw it to Christian Kirk in the end zone, or throw it to the popcorn vendor. And he threw it to the safety on the goal line, with 3 guys in the way. So just little things like that, right? I mean, that's where they are right now. That seems to have maybe he's turned the corner a little bit because he was very efficient the last 2 weeks. The problem is now, the schedule is just tough. These teams on the schedule are rolling, right? And then once you get to Thanksgiving, you have a pretty good idea of who's going to be a playoff contender, and there are a lot of playoff contenders on the schedule coming up. So those mistakes will be magnified by 10 now if it was only 5 earlier in the season. So that's the problem with the offense, right? They can move it. They can run it. Trevor's been throwing it pretty well. But, yeah, the red zone stuff's got to clean up.
At this point, JP, I guess mathematically speaking, technically they could be one of those postseason contenders when it's all said and done, but they got to get going stat. Is that a real goal that's in the mind of this organization? I mean, you spent a lot of time around that locker room and speaking to, members of that organization. So it's a young roster. We know that. Do they feel like this second half of the season is that a realistic thing that's in their minds?
Is it realistic? I don't know. Is it part of the process of changing the culture of the Jaguars organization? Absolutely. You have to think that way. It has not been the thought around here for a long time. Once Thanksgiving hits, it's about, when am I going to Cancun in January, right? I mean, that's kind of a lot of times the way it's felt. But no, championship organizations don't think like that. And that's what Doug Peterson's trying to build here, is an organization that competes for championships every year. And that means you're in it until you're out of it. And they're in it still. Okay, yeah, it's a long shot, but it's a group that has the mindset of, hey, we're still playing for something here. We've got a lot to build on. There's a lot of players that are going to be here for a long time. It's not just a one-and-done team. So let's build something at least and try to win some of these games. And win most of these games, all of a sudden you're in the conversation again. So I think it's just the idea of being alive in the playoff race. Okay, well, you always have a chance, even though you might not, right? I mean, that in reality, we know that outside of that locker room, right? That's going to be a long shot for that to happen. But to establish that mentality in your team, I think that's exactly what Doug Peterson has done. And we heard it on Monday in the locker room. A lot of guys were mentioning postseason playoffs, keeping it going, all that. We had never really heard that around here before. So it's a good step in the right direction. Whether they do it or not, I don't know. But I like hearing it at least.
JP, what grade, speaking of Doug Peterson, what grade would you give him in his first year as the head coach?
Oh, the grades. We did this on the show on Monday night. We graded every position group. We graded the coaching. We graded the draft. We graded. That's what happens in the bye week, coming off the bye week show.
Yeah.
Doug's done a fantastic job, I think. And like I just mentioned, establishing the winning culture and what it means to be a winning organization in the NFL. This team has had one winning season since I've been here in 11 years, and well before that, too. It's been a while, right? So, and there's been players that have come and gone. They haven't been able to keep first-round draft picks into second contracts. That's been a 15-year problem. That's not just a 1-year, 2-year problem. That's an issue. And you really don't have a basis for an organization where you don't have core Jaguar players, right? First, second round guys are not here. So Doug's trying to build that and start from the bottom. So I think he's done a very good job at messaging. They did a great job in free agency, getting some players who understand the league, who are not problems, who are good players and can help a young quarterback and understand the message and get what it means that this is a longer-term build. Yes, they want to win this year, but they have to do the right things this year to be ready to win. If not this year, then in the years to come. So I think he's done an A job, man. I mean, he's been fantastic. He's great to deal with. He understands the league as a player, as an assistant coach, as a head coach. He's got a Lombardi Trophy, a Super Bowl ring. So, and I think he's just perfect for this marketplace at this time. But now they have to have some results here. I mean, this is a fan base that's not very patient anymore. They haven't won many games, but he understands that. And I think he's done a great job.
I think we can all probably, appreciate the impatience. 11 years, you said you've been there, and one winning season. That can get old quickly. But like you said, that young quarterback's tasked with, being a central part of this turnaround, and that is Trevor Lawrence. It's the sophomore season. So take us up to speed kind of on where he is right now. Is there a belief at this point in his young tenure that he is the guy, and how's year 2 gone so far?
Well, like we said earlier, he's had some turnovers earlier in the season where he was, as Tom Coughlin would call it, had a callous disregard for the football. In the I hear his voice in my head saying that in that Philadelphia game, right? I mean, there were 5 turnovers all on him, and there was no excuse at all for that. That was not good, and they lost the game by 1 score. I mean, they had a chance with the ball in their hand late, and he fumbled again. So I think he's cleaned some of that up. Start with that. Don't give the ball away. He did that a bunch last season. I think last season it's hard to throw it out because they happened. They were 17 games. So he has the experience of going through that at least. I don't know if he learned a lot on the field from that, but, getting ready for game day and getting ready for the week and all that, sure. When you have this staff around you now, with him, with Doug Peterson and Mike McCoy as the quarterback's coach. Press Taylor's a young up-and-coming, of course, offensive coordinator. That's a good trio of guys around you who understand the position and maybe a way to approach it. So, there's certainly belief. Trevor's the guy. He's not going anywhere. He's the guy. Come hell or high water, he's starting every game. It doesn't matter if he has 5 turnovers, right? There were some fans calling our shows post game earlier in the season wanting to bench him, and that's the dumbest idea you could ever do because he's not going to get better sipping Gatorade. So go play, go take your lumps, and get better. And I think he's done that. He's the one thing missing is there's not a lot of deep balls down the field, and part of that might be the personnel around. There's maybe not a lot of that, but the other opportunities are there sometimes, and he's not taking the shot. So I think we might see a little bit more of that down the stretch. Maybe some bigger explosive opportunities down the field that he just pulls the trigger and dials it up.
Well, I'm sure the Ravens hope he doesn't clean up those turnover woes just yet. The Ravens, I think, go back something like 12 games with at least 1 turnover each game. So that'll be an interesting development to watch. What about Trayvon Walker? He's the number 1 overall pick from 2022. Has he been living up to his draft status, and should the Ravens be concerned about him?
Yeah, back-to-back number 1 overall picks, by the way. Not the place you want to be as an organization.
Yeah.
But, Trayvon Walker, I think this. There was a lot of expectation because of where he was picked.
Yeah.
They put him in at outside linebacker, which was a position that he just dabbled in at Georgia. It wasn't like he was the regular pass rushing specialist. So his true pass rushing skills are somewhat limited. And, he hasn't had the numbers. Early in the season, he had a big play, interception, week 1, Washington, all that. He's a powerful guy. And if he can figure out some moves off of that straight power, he's going to be a very good player in the league. He might be a really good player if he lines up inside on the defensive line, which he's done a very little bit of, but they've pretty much kept him at outside linebacker. And, we'll see if they dabble a little bit with him, moving him around as this season moves, just, see if he can figure out something else. But they like his upside. But considering where he was picked, it's, they were hoping for maybe a little bit more from him. They were thinking that he was going to help Josh Allen on the other side, and that hasn't worked out either. So they've got some issues in the pass rush game right now, or lack thereof. And Trayvon's a little bit of a piece of that, but no, they're excited for what he can be. But it's still rookie season. Rookie wall could come into play now as well with him.
Seems like that's the case for their other first rounder too, linebacker Devin Lloyd. And I actually listened to Doug Peterson's press conference this week, and basically it looks like they're going with some sort of rotation from here on out with Lloyd and fellow rookie linebacker Chad Muma. So what's gone on with Lloyd's play, and how concerned are you given not only Mark Andrews coming across the middle, but the Ravens' lethal rushing attack?
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. I like Devin Lloyd a lot. I think he's a really smart player. I think he's a fantastic athlete. I think it's moving really fast for him. And you could tell that the last month or so that he's missing some things in the coverage game. And there were times where Chad Muma, who is also a draft pick this year, they stocked up on linebackers of the offseason, by the way, with Aluakan and free agency, and then Devin Lloyd, and then Muma. So it's a whole new room. But Muma has been stepping in there in some key situations in the passing game already. And Doug Peterson said Wednesday, I forget what day it is now. My mind is mush. But said that they're going to rotate. And didn't really give detail on what that means. Okay, they're both going to play, and it's what it is. I think just give Devin Lloyd maybe a little bit of a break, see it from the side. They still have confidence in him as a player and an athlete and all that, but it's a rookie trying to figure some things out when it's going really fast. And he's a smart enough guy to be able to handle that, I think, and understand why the changes are being made. And, I think he's going to be a good player in time. That time has not quite come yet, but there's still confidence in him.
All right, so JP, looking at this game, if you had to draw it up, what would have to go right for the Jaguars? What do they have to do to just make sure everything goes right and they were able to pick up a win?
I'd put like 15 guys on the field on defense and not let Lamar run around like crazy. That's priority number one. If he starts getting out and getting 20, 30-yard runs and weaving through your defense, you're in trouble. And all of a sudden you have to bring extra guys in for that, and he's going to toss it over the top to the tight end. And good night. So that's not ideal. Run the ball, and it's easier said than done against the Ravens. But I mean, if they can control the ball on offense, don't turn it over, obviously. Have some sustained drives, keep Lamar over there sipping Gatorade, and score at the end of it. Okay, you got a shot. Also, there have been some breakdowns the last few weeks in special teams for this group for the Jags. This is not the ideal week to do that against the Ravens, who have like 17 special teams coaches and all these great players. So, so we've got to be clean in that department as well, because that can turn a game on you in a hurry, and we've seen that for years and years in Baltimore. So control the ball, don't turn it over, don't let Lamar kill you. Well, he's going to get his anyway, it feels like, and then he got a shot. Let's get into the fourth quarter.
Ravens are coming off a game, though, JP, while we're on the topic of special teams. Harbs was asked about it in his Monday press conference. He was not pleased. So we'll see if that transitions over to.
That's not good news for us either. I mean, they're going to clean it up this week. Oh, gosh. Great.
Right. Yeah, we will see. But what's one matchup you're looking at? I want to see what this ETN kid's all about out of Clemson, but and see, especially up against the Ravens' interior defensive line, which has been pretty stout against the run. But one matchup that you're looking at going into the weekend.
I think that's a good one to start with. The Jags O-line's been pretty good in the run game this year, really good actually. And this is a really good defensive line for Baltimore. And we miss Calais Campbell greatly. He's a fantastic guy and a great player, and still in year 15 is getting it done up front. So I think that matchup of the front five for the Jags, and then Travis earlier in the season was trying to bounce it outside a lot. And then around about when James Robinson got traded was when he was starting to put pads down and go between the tackles. And we're like, oh, okay, this is a good development in the right department. I like that. And then as we just talked about, the linebackers against Lamar and the tight ends, because that has been a problem. Mobile quarterbacks, designed run quarterbacks, tight ends. Can they figure that out? Well, they're going to have to. So those are my two big matchups.
JP, you mentioned Calais Campbell, man. That has been just, I can imagine, have you covering him for years. Him here, it's not just his play, it's his leadership, his personality, everything. That's just a good guy. It's too bad the league will lose him once he does decide to retire. But to kind of wrap things up, I always ask our guests, if you're comfortable, to give us a prediction and game score.
The prediction, pain. Jaguars find a way, though, I think. It's coming at home, right? It's after Thanksgiving. I think they'll hang in the game. In reality, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens are in first place for a reason. They're a very good football team. They're a playoff contender. Is this Jaguars team ready for the prime time yet? I don't know if they're quite there. I think it's a game in the fourth quarter, and, maybe there's a turnover one way or another that gives the team the advantage in the fourth, and they get it done. But I don't think it's a blowout game. I really don't. I think the Jaguars can hang if they can contain what we talked about. But if they don't, it could get ugly. But it seems like this team still has its head on straight. So I won't give you a true prediction. I think it's closer. I think it's a one-score game, and a turnover here or there in the fourth quarter could decide who has the ball last.
I think that's the good news for you, JP, going into the holidays, that this team is not blowing out anyone this year.
Right.
We're coming off a game 13-3 to the Panthers. I mean, anything can happen. So I do want to finish with this, though, because while he won't be a factor this year, the Jags were pretty active ahead of the deadline, and probably most notably, they brought in Calvin Ridley, who's suspended all year long for gambling. But what is the thought, just to kind of close things out here? I was really kind of intrigued by that move and surprised that maybe, other teams didn't try to jump on it sooner. But, being that, look, we all know, I mean, it's not an injury that he's trying to come back from. It's just not being available, literally, just based on his suspension. So what is the feeling, and what do they think they're going to get out of him come 2023?
Well, it's not an injury, but you got to remember before the suspension, there was some grumbling that he didn't love the game and was not playing a lot and was out and missed half the season and was like, okay, you got to figure that out. And then the gambling stuff came in after that. So is he, they made the deal, so he's coming. So is he all in? Was that just a blip on the radar? Was there something going on in Atlanta that we didn't really know about? Okay, well, here's the situation. They don't have a deep threat wide receiver right now, right? That's what they're missing. That's what we just talked about. So can they figure that out with Ridley? Can he be a number one receiver? It seemed like he could be when he played. He was really good and had his head on straight up there in Atlanta. He was fantastic. So can you get that? And, okay, right now, if it doesn't work out, you're giving up, a fifth, sixth round pick to give it a shot? Okay, great. If he actually performs at his highest level, the most you can give up for him is a second round pick. So you would get a first round talent if he's fantastic for a second round pick. That's a pretty good bargain. So I think that's why they made the deal and continue to stockpile while they can. It won't help you this year, but okay, we're looking ahead to the future now. We like what we have in certain spots in this offense. We know what might be leaving on the offense. Let's go get him while we can and take a chance, and if it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, hey, roll the dice, didn't work out, on to the next. But we'll see. That's for 2023. There's still 7 games left here. I mean, this is, this is what we were talking about in the lot. We're asking all these guys in the locker room, hey, what do you think about Calvin? They're like looking at us like we're from Mars. Well, oh yeah, there's like 10 games left. That's why.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Well, we appreciate you dropping by the vault, man, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Same to you both, and thanks for having me on, and I hope we have a good game on Sunday here at TIAA Bank Field. Should be pretty good weather down here, and have a good holiday.
All right, good stuff from JP there, and I was going to have him. This is a typical question I have for almost all of our guests, and that's, kind of their injury situation. But looking at the injury report, the Jaguars have 0, Bobby. 0 injuries to report. Are we like week 1 or are we week 12 here? I know they're coming off of a bye, but that's bananas.
Yeah, for real. That's like clean living for almost December football. Ravens can't say that. But hey, this time last year, I think they would take this time this year right now over this time last year.
Yeah. Well, and I can just hear Ravens fans now, like, who are their trainers? Let's get them in here. Let's hire them for the Ravens. So meanwhile, on the Ravens side, okay, so we've got some injury updates. It's not as good as the Jaguars, but I think there was some good things. So the Ravens, the injury report had 8 guys missing practice, but 1, 2, 3 of them were for rest. Okay. But to start out, we got updates on Ronnie Stanley and Kyle Hamilton. And the gist of it there is that the MRI that we were waiting on for Ronnie reinforced what they originally thought. It's positive news. So John Harbaugh put both Stanley and Hamilton in this day-to-day category, and then he said they would be game time decisions. Bobby, what's your take from that?
Well, I don't think we're going to see either one of those guys on Sunday in Jacksonville, and I think that's okay. Like, for us to be just looking at them right now as day-to-day, where literally both limped off, and in Ronnie's case, we know it's the surgically repaired left ankle that has caused him so much pain and anxiety over the last couple of years and has made him so unavailable that to say he's just day-to-day and not shut down for the rest of the year, God forbid, feels like a win. And so, watching him limp off and barely put any weight on it on Sunday, yeah, it's just, I'm happy. I'm encouraged for Ronnie and for the team because we know his importance, and for Kyle as well, that the knee is stable. And let's just make sure that while these guys are day to day, yeah, there's no rush to get these guys back come Jacksonville. I believe in Patrick McCary, and certainly a guy that is in his rookie season that's hitting his stride. Let's not rush him back out on the football field just because. So that's how I feel. How about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw a tweet. It came from the Panthers. They were trying to highlight the sack on that play for their guy, and it was the best view I had seen of it. But it was I saw a close up of them rolling into Stanley's ankle. Going from seeing that on Sunday to hearing that he's now day to day, that I was surprised by. And this is like one of those happy surprises, So no, I definitely don't expect him or Hamilton to play. I don't know how serious it is. Harbaugh, I think, saying day-to-day is extremely vague. It's basically saying he can come back this season, but isn't promising anything else. So, yeah, I for sure don't expect them to play against the Jaguars, and then we'll kind of go from there. But to me, it's like even if they need 2 or 3 weeks out, this is great news. What we want is to ramp up come mid-December, start ramping things up. So good news there. Now, with Gus Edwards, he also practiced again. It was limited, just like he was last week. I was hoping to see him kind of take a step up and return to full. So I think this still puts him in question for Sunday. but I think there's a better chance for Gus than the other two guys that we just discussed.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Along those same lines, in terms of full participants, Mark Andrews was listed as such, so that's good news for him as he kind of moves his way past the shoulder and knee injuries that he was banged up. I mean, you can't move past him at this point, right? Nobody's playing 100% come late November, early December in the NFL, but you know what I mean. And then the other piece of news, speaking of like the whole ramp up period, the 21-day window coming off of IR and back into the fold is Marcus Williams, who we have not seen at practice for 7 weeks since he dislocated his wrist earlier this season. Now we both know that prior to that injury, this dude was in ball hawk mode and literally making a seamless transition to his first year here in Baltimore. So that's great news. We should also mention that according to video from Jamison Hensley of ESPN, yes, he was back at practice, but he wasn't actually catching footballs yet, leading you to believe that, okay, the wrist is still tender. Let's be careful with him. But that 3-week, 21-day window is now a thing. And so you'd like to think that this ramp-up period will, inch by inch here, get more and more from a workload standpoint over the next couple weeks.
So if he were to use the full 3 weeks and return to game action immediately at the end of 3 weeks, that would put him back for that week 15 game with the Browns. And if he were back for that, then that has him 3 more regular season games before we're all presuming that the Ravens are going to make the playoffs. So that would be great. Now, it's interesting to me because I wonder, it doesn't happen often. Usually when they give the guys 3 weeks of they have the 21-day window, they usually use all 21 days. I'm wondering, I know what you're saying with that he wasn't catching balls today, but I am wondering, I mean, do you need as much of a ramp-up period if it's, your wrist? He's got to get in football shape, but I imagine his body is still in generally good shape. I just wonder if he needs the full 21 days. So I hate to put up, too big of expectations. I'm not saying to expect it, but if anybody could come back sooner than the 21 days, you'd think it would be like something like a wrist injury here. So definitely something to watch there. And another guy that we don't really talk about because he's still on the practice squad, and so he doesn't make it on the injury report, but Deshaun Jackson, he returned to practice today, according to reports. And Bobby, the offense could use a deep threat if he can stay on there for more than a couple of plays. But, that's more good news. I think all in all, it's not 0 injuries, but not a bad injury report considering what could have been coming out of that Carolina game.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Deshaun's case, right, he continues to deal with that hamstring, which is lingering. I mean, hamstrings linger for everyone. Then all of a sudden you put in a guy that's in his mid-30s playing double-digit seasons in the NFL. It's going to take a little bit longer. Harbs alluded to that recently. But I would expect that when he's 100% healthy, given their limitations and from a vertical passing game standpoint, this dude is going to be on the game day 53-man roster. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Again, assuming he's healthy for sure. So, man, I'll tell you what, I said it earlier when we were talking about, whether there'd be consistency in the offense. I mean, honestly, if the injuries just stop, but you can get, you can get Stanley, you can get Hamilton, you can get Williams, you can get Deshaun Jackson out there. Nothing, snowballs with Lamar Jackson's hip, Did we mention Lamar? We talked about Lamar, right?
We haven't.
No, we haven't. For those who don't know, we are recording this right after doing a morning vault, which I know we addressed it there, so I couldn't remember in which show we put it in. Lamar Jackson, talk about bearing a lead, Bobby. Lamar Jackson missed Wednesday's practice with a hip injury, but perhaps it wasn't on top of our mind because Harbaugh, just like last week, Harbaugh was like, when that illness went down, Harbaugh was like, yes, he's definitely playing. With the same, conviction, he said the same thing this week, that Lamar's definitely going to play and that they were just holding him back to give him rest. It sounded more precautionary than anything. So there's a Lamar Jackson update. You'll probably get more panic mode when you go out on Twitter, more than what I just did. But I do think he will be good to go on Sunday. But Point being is if you can get these guys that we just named back by that week 15 with the Browns, we were talking about consistency in the beginning of it so that the offense can catch fire. Yeah, to me, if you have those 3 games heading into the playoffs, that's perfect. That's perfect amount to go ahead and start getting your offense together, get your mojo together, and really hit your stride come playoff time. So, Bobby, it is that time. We will move into game predictions and scores. Why don't you lead us off here?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I just couldn't believe though. One thing I really I'm thinking about is he's been there for 11 years, partner. You were with the team for 13, I believe.
Yeah,
in Baltimore. He's been in Jacksonville for 11. One winning season.
Oh,
I mean, just you think about how that changed his life. Like as someone who covers, like we've just been so blessed, you know? I mean, I've only been in Baltimore for, you know, excluding college and like actually covering the team. I've only been here for, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years at this point. And it's been it's just so funny. Like your definition of a season is so different, you know, like he just hearing his tone and his voice, like you asked him, what are you expecting? He's like, pain. They're expecting pain because that's all they know, Sarah, you know?
Wait, what movie was he quoting though? Who says that? Pain.
Somebody says
somebody
that.
In the It's I'm going to look it up as you're talking. This is driving me nuts. I got to know what movie it is. Keep going.
All right. I'll go with my prediction then. Yeah. Okay. So Ravens are getting 4-point favorites. The over under is 43.5. So look, I kind of said it. I've said it many times in recent weeks. The art of the blowout is something that is in 2019 and is staying in 2019. They just don't blow out teams, and that's okay. Like, it's just, I don't believe that even if you're out there thinking this is an absolute, you know, total guaranteed win, you might be right, but I don't think it's going to be, you know, as easy as maybe some people who are just lazily picking games might think. I am going to go with the Ravens win. I think, you know, more so than anything else, their defense has proven that with pedestrian offensive performances, you can still win games based on how they're built at this point. And Mike McDonald has been leading the charge there with timely calls and just overall, you know, schematically finding a way to win games with his personnel. So I am going to go with the Ravens win. I'm going to go 20-14 Ravens over the Jaguars in a little post-Thanksgiving bout. How about you?
I found it. I can't believe I couldn't remember it. It's Rocky 3 with Mr. T. When he's about to go and face Rocky and an announcer asks him, what do you predict for this match? And he looks in the camera and he says, pain. There it is.
Gotcha. That was bad on us. Yes, thank you for getting that.
That was bad, but I feel so much better now. Like a weight has been lifted off of me. Okay. So, I think this Jaguars team, as I said, you know, with JP and asked him if it was accurate, they appear more, I think they're more dangerous than they appear. I think they're a young team that, you know, keep shooting themselves in the foot with turnovers. I think their kicker missed 2 field goals against Kansas City. You know, Justin Tucker doesn't know much about that. I think that the Ravens can we just talked about controlled chaos, can put Trevor Lawrence in a mindset where he just doesn't know what he should be doing, and he will get happy feet with this pass rush that is going to always be fresh with these rotations. So I think there's some opportunities there on defense. On offense, I think a lot's going to depend on who's playing. Is Gus going to be back? Is Ronnie Stanley going to be in there? All that kind of stuff. Can they start getting some more consistency? That's what I'll be looking for to see them kind of coming into their own. So once I heard your score, I liked it better than my score. But I'm going with 20.
You can't let me influence you.
That's why I'm not going to change it. But I'm going to go. What should I do? Okay, I'm going to go 24-17. 24-17. I was tempted to say 24-14 14, but I'm like 10 points. Are they going to do that? So, okay, that's it. I'm going 24-14. I'm giving them a 10-point win. And I know that maybe I shouldn't, but I'm still giving them the 10-point win. I feel like they should. I feel like they should do it, and I think they can do it.
You just reminded me a couple minutes ago, too, when you mentioned Justin Tucker, that we probably haven't given him enough love this week specifically. Not that he needs more love. The guy gets plenty of love, but he needs some love this week because it was his birthday week. Earlier, a few days ago, he turned 33, and as of right now, entering week 12, he has made 65 straight field goals in the fourth quarter and overtime, which, of course, extended his NFL record back last weekend against Carolina. So he is the ultimate weapon, non-skill player weapon. I got killed, by the way, for saying that recently on Facebook. Look it up.
Oh,
Look up what a skill player is defined as. I'm not calling him skillless. Come on now. Obviously, he's highly skilled. Holy crap. But, Sarah, he's been really, really valuable this year, obviously. And I think based on the way that they're winning games, boy, that trend could continue. They're going to really, really need him if some of these games continue to be close against teams that, again, on paper, you feel like, oh, why aren't they killing Carolina? Why aren't they killing Jacksonville? Well, because there's a lot of parity in this year's NFL. And quite frankly, I prefer parity over, significant gaps in talent, which we saw in 2019, even though that was a magical run. It was a magical run, but it wasn't realistic and it wasn't sustainable.
Bobby, even though we've neglected to give him some love this week, who didn't forget to do that? It was Lamar Jackson. If you haven't seen on the Ravens team website, they put up a clip from Wired. After the game, Justin Tucker goes up to Lamar. He's like, "Hey, congratulations on the win." And I said Bobby. Lamar says back to him, "Well, congratulations to you." And they're like both complimenting each other. And Lamar's like, "Man, good field goal kicks." He's like, "In that win, that's crazy." And it was just so like the two, current Ravens goats, right? These two goats are just totally giving love to each other. And football and adorable, I guess, doesn't go together, but I found the moment to be just adorable. I loved both of these guys who are just fantastic at their jobs, totally feeding each other the love. So it's good.
Wholesome.
It's in the season. We're supposed to. It was wholesome's the good word for it. Wholesome's a good word for it. Yeah. And it's just the energy's in the air, right? It's an energy of gratitude, right? So glad to see that they're both grateful for each other. So that about wraps it up for us here on the Ravens Vault. You will be listening to this. What is it? Friday morning when we post this. So it'll be you might be having some of that Thanksgiving, hangover from all that turkey and all that. Maybe eating some leftovers and all of that. So we hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. This preview episode will replace our Friday morning Ravens Vault. Bobby and I are going to try to enjoy the holiday weekend with friends and family. And so we hope you all are too. But come on back Sunday after the game and we will have a live breakdown of everything that transpires. So thank you. We appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving from inside the vault.